A world on edge, the Israel-Iran standoff. The relationship between Israel and Iran has long been characterized by mistrust and animosity. This tension has transformed the Middle East into a powder keg. At the heart of this standoff lies Iran's nuclear ambitions, viewed by Israel as an existential threat. Iran's support for groups like Hezbollah fuels a cycle of proxy wars and covert operations. The international community has tried to mediate, urging restraint. But deep-seated suspicions and historical grievances hinder lasting peace. The specter of a larger conflict looms large, with catastrophic consequences. Understanding this volatile relationship is key to preventing further escalation. The Shadow of the Bomb, a history of tensions. The roots of the Israel-Iran conflict are deep and complex, entangled with the birth of both modern nations. The 1979 revolution ushered in a new era of hostility, with Iran's new regime viewing Israel as an illegitimate state. This divide was exacerbated by Iran's support for Palestinian militant groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Iran's pursuit of nuclear technology, claimed to be for peaceful purposes, adds fuel to the fire. Israel views this program as a direct threat, fearing nuclear weapons could be used against it. These actions have only served to further inflame tensions and push the region closer to the brink. The unthinkable happens: Israel's drastic choice. Israel, driven by a perceived existential threat, launches a nuclear strike against Iran. The target is a key uranium enrichment facility buried deep underground. The decision to use a nuclear weapon is not taken lightly. The immediate aftermath is chaos and confusion. Global communication channels are flooded with reports of a large explosion in Iran. The world grapples with the implications of this act. Fallout, immediate reactions, and global condemnation. The international community reacts with a mixture of horror, condemnation, and fear. Governments worldwide issue strongly worded statements, denouncing Israel's actions and calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities. The United Nations Security Council convenes for an emergency session, but its ability to respond effectively is hampered by the deep divisions within the international community. The use of a nuclear weapon, even a tactical one, sends shockwaves across the globe. Financial markets plunge into turmoil as investors panic. The price of oil skyrockets, threatening to cripple the global economy. Anti-war protests erupt in cities around the world, with millions taking to the streets to express their outrage and fear. Amidst the global outcry, governments scramble to assess the situation and formulate a response. Alliances are tested as nations are forced to choose sides. The risk of the conflict escalating into a wider regional war, or even a global one, becomes a terrifying possibility. Section 5: Washington's Dilemma: Navigating Alliances and Outrage. The United States, caught between its long-standing alliance with Israel and the global condemnation of Israel's actions, faces a diplomatic nightmare. The Biden administration, already grappling with a multitude of international crises, is thrust into a situation with no easy answers. On the one hand, the United States is committed to Israel's security and understands the threat it perceives from Iran. On the other hand, the use of a nuclear weapon is a red line that the United States has repeatedly warned against, and failing to condemn Israel's actions would severely damage America's standing in the world. The Biden administration walks a tightrope, condemning the use of nuclear weapons while simultaneously reaffirming its commitment to Israel's security. It calls for restraint from all sides and urges a diplomatic solution to the crisis. However, its words ring hollow in the aftermath of such a catastrophic event. Section 6: The Bear's Roar: Russia's Response and Strategic Calculations. Russia, long a supporter of Iran and a critic of Western foreign policy in the Middle East, condemns Israel's actions in no uncertain terms. It seizes on the opportunity to portray the United States and its allies as hypocrites, pointing to their own history of military interventionism. The Kremlin, seeing a chance to advance its own geopolitical interests, moves quickly to bolster its ties with Iran. It provides diplomatic support, humanitarian aid, and perhaps even military assistance. This crisis allows Russia to position itself as a counterweight to the West, and a defender of nations targeted by what it perceives as American aggression. However, Russia is also wary of being drawn into a wider conflict. It knows that a direct confrontation with the United States and its allies would be disastrous. Therefore, while it seeks to exploit the situation to its advantage, it treads carefully, avoiding any actions that could lead to a catastrophic escalation. Section 7, The Dragon's Shadow, China's Balancing Act. China, a rising global power with growing interests in the Middle East, finds itself in a delicate position. While it values its economic ties with Iran and shares Russia's skepticism of Western interventionism, it also recognizes the destabilizing impact of Israel's actions and the threat of nuclear proliferation. Beijing treads a careful path, condemning the use of nuclear weapons while avoiding direct criticism of Israel. It calls for all parties to exercise restraint, return to the negotiating table, and seek a peaceful resolution to the crisis. China's primary concern is maintaining stability in the region, which is crucial for its energy security and economic interests. China's response to the crisis is pragmatic and measured. It avoids taking sides, instead focusing on de-escalation and the resumption of diplomacy. China's actions reflect its growing influence on the world stage and its desire to be seen as a responsible global power. Section 8. Flames engulf the region. The Middle East erupts. The Middle East, already a tinderbox of political and sectarian tensions, erupts in the aftermath of Israel's nuclear strike. Iran, reeling from the attack and fueled by rage and a desire for revenge, vows to retaliate. Its proxies across the region, Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, are put on high alert, ready to strike at Israel and its allies. The region descends into chaos. Terrorist attacks become commonplace. Oil production is disrupted, sending shockwaves through the global economy. The fragile peace accords that have held in recent years begin to unravel. The entire region is on the brink of a conflagration that could engulf it in a bloody and protracted war. The humanitarian cost of the conflict is catastrophic. Millions are displaced from their homes, hospitals are overwhelmed with casualties. The already dire situation in war-torn countries like Syria and Yemen deteriorates even further. The region is plunged into a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. Section 9. A World Adrift, the Collapse of International Order. The use of a nuclear weapon by Israel shatters the post-World War II international order. The nuclear taboo, the long-held norm against the use of such weapons, lies in ruins. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the cornerstone of global efforts to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, is severely weakened. The international community, deeply divided and paralyzed by mistrust, is unable to mount an effective response. The United Nations, already struggling to maintain peace and security in a multipolar world, is rendered largely irrelevant. The rules-based international order, already under strain from rising nationalism and great power competition, teeters on the brink of collapse. The world enters a dangerous new era, one characterized by heightened tensions, the risk of nuclear proliferation, and the potential for catastrophic conflict. The old certainties are gone, replaced by uncertainty, fear, and the chilling realization that the unthinkable has become all too real. Section 10. Picking up the pieces. Can diplomacy salvage the peace? In the aftermath of such a devastating event, the path forward is fraught with peril. The use of a nuclear weapon has fundamentally altered the geopolitical landscape, leaving the world grappling with the consequences and searching for a way to prevent further escalation. Diplomacy, while seemingly impossible in the immediate aftermath of such an event, remains the only hope for averting a wider catastrophe. International pressure must be brought to bear on all sides to agree to an immediate ceasefire and return to the negotiating table. The road to peace will be long and arduous, requiring painful compromises from all parties involved. However, the alternative, a world consumed by nuclear war, is too horrific to contemplate. Section 11. A warning for the future, the perils of nuclear brinkmanship. The hypothetical scenario of Israel using a nuclear weapon against Iran serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the ever-present danger of nuclear weapons. It underscores the need for renewed commitment to diplomacy, disarmament, and the peaceful resolution of conflict. The lessons of this hypothetical crisis must not be ignored. The world must work together to strengthen the global non-proliferation regime, reduce nuclear arsenals, and prevent the spread of these devastating weapons. The future of humanity may depend on it. The consequences of inaction are too grave to bear. The world must choose dialogue over destruction, cooperation over conflict, and peace over annihilation. The time